We're live. What's happening, guys? How's everybody doing tonight? Who do we got here? We got who the regulars are already in. Dakota, Doug Narden, Rocky Myers, Doug Narden. I said that already. Michael Bertoni. What's happening, guys? EVs. I want to talk about EVs. I'll tell you. Two things got me started thinking about this. Right. So the first was night before last. I watched Doug DeMaro's review on the Tesla Plaid. Okay, and have you? I don't know if you've seen this or not. I'm like Biden entering a press conference late. Answer some. So let's not do politics, right? Because we can go way to a bad place. So if you haven't watched Doug DeMaro's review of the Tesla Plaid, right? I recommend you do that. Not right now, but right afterwards, because it is the best couple of seconds of video, I think, probably in the history of the internet. So basically, it's like a half-hour long video, and like for the first like 20 minutes, he's talking about the features of the car, blah blah blah, this button, this thing, this that, blah blah, and then he takes it for a ride. So he's cruising around, right? And he's like, so let's see what everybody's talking about here with this thing, you know. So he nails it, right? And the look of shock and horror on his face is just like off the chain, because the Plaid, right, is a legitimately, seriously bad piece of machinery, right? Whether whether you like EVs or not, it makes no difference. If you're a hot rodder, if you're a gearhead, okay, this is just off the chain. 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. It's a 9-second quarter-mile car, right? I mean, think about that, right? 9-second quarter-mile. So I watched that, and I was like, that's pretty neat. And like I said, check it out yourself afterwards. Doug DeMaro's review on the Plaid. And then the other day, I did that video about is it time to push the panic button, and we were talking about how parts are more and more, they're coming in defective, substandard, not available. You've got supply chains breaking down. You've got all of this. And reading through the comments, there were hundreds of you guys that were saying the same thing, and that's it. They're doing it to get rid of the internal combustion engine so they can make everybody go to electric cars. And there's a problem with that argument. See, I thought that too. But then if you really extrapolate the whole thing, the shortages and the substandard parts apply across the board, whether it has to do with internal car parts or machine parts, or if you fix bowling ball machines, you can't get certain things right now. They're just not in supply. So it's not like they're trying to target the internal combustion engine. It's across the board. It's a problem. It's across the board. And we're going to do a whole video on some of the current issues, some of the current supply shortages, and what it means to us as we go down the road. But like I said, EVs. So we got a lot of Mopar people on this channel, right? Mexican spec, nobody needs a 2-second 0 to 60 car on the street. I agree with you. I said the same thing when they brought out the Hellcat. I was like, nobody needs this kind of horsepower on the street. It's just stupid to put this kind of power in the hands of the general public. But let's talk about the general distaste a lot of guys have for EVs. And I wanted to specifically talk to Mopar guys, because whether you realize it or not, your Hellcat or your Roadrunner or your Dart or your whatever it happens to be, if you trace its lineage all the way to the beginning, the very first car in the line that later became Chrysler and Mopar and all of the things that we love and enjoy, the very first one was in 1894, and it was a car called the Electrobat. It was a mass-produced electric car. the Electrobat company, and they were building these things for taxi use. So one thing led to another. That company went tits up, and it was eaten by another company, which was eaten by another company, which was eaten by Maxwell, which later was eaten by Chrysler, and became what we know today. So basically, the great 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 grandfather of your Hellcat is an EV, right? People don't think about it along those, but electric cars have been around since the very beginning. They predate. Not only they predate, they came around side by side with the internal combustion engine, along with steam motors at the time. Electrobat was your mother-in-law. Great name, though, right? Electrobat. But people, there's this general, like, people would automatically assume that I'm down on EVs, and I'm not at all, even a little bit. Like, for instance, the Tesla, right? The Plaid. I think it's amazing. The thing that turns me off from it is its over reliance on over technology. Like, they went too far. Like, you don't need, when the functions of the opening and closing the door is primarily electric, right? When everything is on a touchscreen, you lose me on that. But the actual motors, right? The actual batteries, the actual motor, the actual machine itself. Like, for instance, if the Tesla Plaid just had this giant pole switch that you grab and go bang like that, I'm all in. I'm going to buy one right now. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't, and so that turns me off from it. And then of course there's this is impending sense of internal combustion doom. Like, they're going to replace they want to get rid of all the internal combustion engines, and everything's going to be EV by 2030 or 2035, whatever happens to be. And that is absolutely not possible by any stretch. There's a lot of dreamers out there right now. There's a lot of dreamers that are in decision making, situations, but they really haven't put two and two together with all that. There are certain uh, um, there are certain limitations aside from just the obvious. It'll crush the grid. Um, it ain't gonna happen. It's literally physically impossible to happen. So there's a lot of that doom and gloom, not worry about it, that is not warranted. Let's see what you guys are saying over here. Mopar Man 1970. I think it's funny how they're embracing electric cars like it's some never seen before idea, and they're the first one to think of it. Yeah, well, They forget history. You know, the the key thing to remember here, right, is that our entire world, right, everything in our world, um, whether it has to do with where we live, where we work, how we transport stuff, how we eat, how we grow our food, how we transport our food, how we go across the oceans, how we go across the continents, all of it has to do with the capabilities of the internal combustion engine. So it's not that we achieved everything we did and then we made the internal combustion engine to help that along. The internal combustion engine came first, and then we were able to do all of the things that we did. So the bottom line, it's really simple. Okay, it's like almost like a mathematical equation. You can create electricity by burning a fuel like gasoline or diesel or oil, right? But you can't create diesel or oil through electricity. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's like you can make one, you can't make the other. Racing with paramotors. I hope we can recycle lithium batteries like lead acid. Lead acid is very recyclable. The lead is reused. Yeah, that's the other thing. The whole lithium. There's no place to get rid of this stuff. When you're talking about having 100 million electric vehicles on the road, how many of them every year are going to take, a million? Let's just say once you've got them in mass circulation, let's just say in this country, you're going to take 1 million batteries out of service, 1 million of these lithium-ion batteries out of service. Where do you put them? They don't recycle like regular batteries do. Doug, I love the pic. I see, the electric car being charged up by the diesel generator. Yeah, exactly. Even if you look at it this way, right? And listen, I mean, just for the record, I really do believe that electric cars do have a place in society. They should be around. I'm not an environmentalist. I'm not a green person. I love dogs. That's about it. We stop there, right? And as far as like, I'm one of those people that believes that oil is not a fossil fuel. I believe that it's a byproduct of some process that happens within the earth, and there's no shortage of oil and never will be. So I'm not one of those people, and I'm not saying that's a fact. I'm saying that's what my belief is, based on observation. But I still believe that the electric car has a place in society. It has a place in the world, but not to replace the internal combustion engine. It just can't happen. J. Russell Finch, electrical waste will explode. People and computers and iPhones are bad. That is the other major problem with the EVs, with EVs on a mass scale. So now this is something I just saw recently. Fire departments where they have a lot of EVs currently in use are now having these, it looks like a dumpster. It's a giant dumpster. It's big enough to fit a car. So there was recently one of these things. It was and it's what they call a smoker, right? So evidently, once an electric car starts to smoke, at that point it becomes unstable. They don't know what to do because you've got all these lithium-ion batteries in there ready to go poof. So when they get an electric car that's smoking, they have to take the electric car and isolate the thing in one of these giant dumpsters, right? And leave it there until the thing either bursts into flames or the batteries short themselves down to where they're completely neutral. So this could take this car, this smoker, right? Electric car is a liable fire/explosion hazard for possibly days. And if they do catch fire, the water it takes to put the fire out is now contaminated through the lithium ion, because it comes in contact with the lithium ion. So this stuff is running down into the sewage system, or it's leaching through the water into the groundwater. There are like these huge issues that like nobody's talking about. But as soon as these things are actually out there in any great number, these are real liabilities. This is a problem. Racing with power motors, lithium-ion batteries are exothermic. They provide the oxygen internally, no air oxygen required to burn. Right, and there lies the crux of the problem with them. We should just go hydrogen. You know, the Hindenburg left a bad taste on a lot of people's mouths as far as hydrogen goes. And I don't think that it can be produced and stored in effective ways, like in an effective volume, and to actually really work as a mass fuel for internal combustion engines. Like I think it's great. You can probably have small fleets of hydrogen powered vehicles, but to actually have them out there spread across the landscape and hydrogen as the fuel, I don't think it's possible. I don't know enough about it, other than just little glimpses that I've looked at it here and there. But like when I did look at it, it just didn't add up. It didn't look like it was going to make any sense. 2 number 9s. Hydrogen is lossy storage, not source. I don't know what you mean by lossy storage. Lobo GTX in 100 years, the Slant 6 will still be alive and running, and EVs will be dead or recycled to the toilets. I agree with that. I agree with that. Hindenburg was covered in solid rocket fuel. That was the real part. It wasn't solid rocket fuel. It was, oh God, I'm trying to think of the name of it. They coated the canvas that was on the outside of it with a material, but I'll remember the name of it, but it's not solid rocket fuel. Rusty Water. There's a guy who wrenches on junk Tesla and refurbishes. Yeah, his name is Rich Rebuilds. Great channel, brilliant guy. Um, I would love to talk to him at some point, definitely. What's going on, Mopar Dan? How are you? Tom Muse. I can see turbine engines with electrical systems becoming normal. Just like jet aircraft in a much smaller form, it would create enough power to a carbon. The problem with the turbines is the exhaust. It was the same thing that they had with the Chryslers. With the one of the problems, aside from efficiency, they're just not efficient. There's no a turbine doesn't make enough low end torque to actually move a car through stop and go traffic. Like I think a turbine would be fine. A turbine based motor would be fine for like a long distance, like a road warrior type of vehicle. But for inner city use or suburban use, I don't think it's because you just got stop and go traffic, and the turbine is challenged that has zero torque. There's no breakaway torque, so it's the turbine's got to work 10-10 to get the car across an intersection. That's the biggest problem with them. Um, it will be impossible to break the love affair Americans have with the traditional automobile. It's not even a love affair, right? I mean, okay, so you think about this, right? The average person, right, who just goes and buys whatever, a Toyota Corolla or a Honda Accord, the average person, right? They don't care what it's powered by. All they care about is limitations. So it's not a matter of having a love affair or anything. It's just that when the world is too unpredictable. Hey, can I get a water, please? Thank you. The world is too unpredictable for the predictability necessary to run an electric car convenient. You know what I'm saying? So you've got only X amount to charge, and it's going to take you 20 minutes, a half hour to put enough battery in the car to go another like 20 miles or so. But you got to pick up. All of a sudden, Jimmy's sick at school. You got to go over there, and then you get stuck in traffic because of the construction zone and whatever it is. And the next thing you know, range anxiety becomes range doom, and you're stuck on the side of the road. Whereas with a gasoline car, there's always a place where you could throw it, take you a minute, and so that's the big obstacle there. I got a couple of super chats. Let me get to these super chats. Go back to the super chats. Okay. Need metal. Buggy whip manufacturers didn't like ice. Nobody knows what EVs will be like 5 years from now. The sky isn't falling. I mean, I agree with that, but I don't see a major breakthrough in 5 years. I mean, you may see further refinements of the systems that are in place now, but there's no revolution coming in 5 years. That just is not going to happen. It's a pipe dream. And the biggest thing is the ramifications. Like, okay, so the lithium ion battery is an immense improvement over the lead acid battery, which had been used to this point. But the lithium ion battery comes with its own explosive issues. I mean, lead acid batteries were explosive too, but it was a minor explosion. I've had them explode. I had one blow up in my face once. When a lithium ion battery blows up in your face, you have some serious problems. Ray Coates, where did that go? Ray Coates had sent a super chat. I can't get back to it. How do I get back to it? Ray, if you could jump back in there and ask that question again. I'm sorry. This freaking super chats. I can't get back once it scrolls off the top. On this thing, I can't get back to it. Bob M. Everyone acting like private auto ownership is going to still be a thing. Bob M. You bring up an interesting point because that seems to be a big so let's not go into like conspiracy land. Let's just stick with what. And I don't want to say these conspiracies aren't reality. Obviously, I'm a self-proclaimed conspiracy guy, but I want to take that completely out of the picture. Just look at the practical implications of what you're talking about. That they're going to outlaw the private ownership of automobiles. That is utterly and completely impossible. If you go into the world, you go into the actual world, right? When you look at okay, when I say the actual world, we tend to live in our own little environments. We tend to live in our environment. Like, in other words, like my environment, my perspective on things is going to be shaped by the neighborhood that I'm in and the situations that exist. So here's a supermarket, and here's here's where the Taco Bell is, and here's where the school is, and here's where the shop is, right? And I'll tend to look at everything in those, right? And in that closed loop of a world, you could say, yeah, I could see where they're going to take away our private cars, and they're going to give us a government-issued car, and everybody's going to have to just use this government-issued car, or whatever it happens to be. But when you go into the bigger world and you look at how many people and things are moving, and how many different situations and circumstances, and it's impossible. They couldn't outlaw privately owned vehicles, because on the bigger scale, on the national or the global scale, it would be impossible. No one organization, no 10 organizations could manage the comings and goings of all of these cars. It would be impossible. Oh, what do we got here? Thump ER, the sweaty fat guy. Thank you, sir. I've been working on green alternatives to my GTOs for the last 15 years. There's a reason I went ethanol. I'd be happy to have a stream about it. I mean, I'm not a green guy. I don't, you know what I mean? It's like I'm going to tell you right now. It's like, I want to care. You know what I mean? I really do. I wish I cared. I don't. I mean, I can't find the place inside of me that cares about that. So it would be hard for me to actually do a stream and give it any sort of credence. But I do respect your position, and I respect your work towards what you believe is a good thing. Tom Thumb, gasoline cars didn't evolve in 5 years, more like 40 years. So why do EVs only get 5 years? Well, EVs have had 125 years. We were just talking about, the Electrobat, the first Mopar was an EV, right? 1895. So they've had 130 years to evolve, right? So it's not 5 years. Booster price. I wouldn't say it's impossible. Tesla has features in their cars that the customer has to subscribe to in order to use, like supercharging. They also maintain a consistent connection for upgrades. Scotty Kilmer did a video, I saw it this morning, where somebody ordered a feature, a self-driving feature. They have a Tesla, okay? This is where like this stuff won't fly for the long run. This is the kind of thing that's okay for the short term, but it's not going to fly in the long term, because the general public is going to say no, just no, right? So Scotty does this video, right? It happened was, fellow owns a Tesla, okay, and he lends the Tesla to his father-in-law. And the father-in-law is trying to get something to work, whatever it is, trying to operate a feature, whatever it happened to be. And the sequence, by him fumbling around, he accidentally put in the code or the sequence to equip the self-driving feature of the car. This is like a subscription thing. So all this stuff is built into the car, and now you subscribe to it. This isn't going to fly with the general public. This is okay for the Tesla fan people. They're like, okay, yeah, I want to subscribe to this feature, subscribe to that feature. The average person is not going to accept that, the feature's in the car, but I got to pay to use it. No, it's not going to happen. So, at any rate, what happens is this guy accidentally activates the self-driving mode, right? The next month, the owner of the car gets a bill for $14,000. he gets a bill from Tesla for $14,000 for the activation of the self-driving mode. So it's already there. It's already there. You already paid $50,000-$60,000 for this car. Now, because his father-in-law fumbled around with some switches on the, or fumbled around on the touch screen, now it's an extra $14,000. I'm sure they straightened it out, but I mean, it's just the very idea of it is just absolutely absurd. Thumper, the sweaty fat guy, $5 again. Thank you, sir. For me, it's about saving money, not the planet. I'm on a fixed income and paying $5 for gas means I can't drive a GTO versus 10 cents for free vodka. Okay, that's a great one. I like that. Wheelie King. I've been deep in the EV versus petrol carbon footprint rabbit hole for weeks. Be careful with your sources of info and don't believe everything you read. I don't believe anything I read. just don't. Bank Yushi. I think you're wrong, Tony. Subscribing for features your device already has is something that is becoming increasingly common to the point of normalization to the general public. I think that applies. I think that'll apply to things like your phone or your TV. There's just people have a different relationship with their cars. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. And you're right about certain things becoming normalized, certain things that are actually quite perverse. And that's, in my mind, that's about as perverse as you could possibly get. Here's a thing that's built into the device that you bought that you can't use because you didn't pay the extra money, and then you just turn it on and off at will. I don't know if that's going to fly in the bigger picture in the general world of cars. I think that while it will be normalized, I think that the company that comes along down the road and says, well, yeah, well, you can have your self-driving for free. We just automatically have it. They're the ones that are going to get the lion's share of sales. So does that make any sense? So yeah, you buy a Tesla and it's $14,000 to turn this feature on. But if you buy the Toyota version of it, it's only $5,000. And if you buy the Hyundai version of it, it's only, $200. And if you buy the Ford version of it, well, they're just going to give it to you. So that's what's going to happen. People are going to go to the lowest bidder, and it's just going to be a race to the bottom. I think it's just a novelty right now that's being accepted by the Tesla fan people and fanboys. And I'm not putting them down. You know what I mean? I'm kind of a closet Tesla fan person. I love the idea of what they do. I don't like the execution of it. So, right? Okay. Per month. I'm a closet Tesla fan. Well said. No, I actually I sit back and I watch what they do. I have no desire to own one. You know what I mean? It's like I really have no desire to own one because they are over teched. But I'm watching with a happy fascination as to like how this whole thing is evolving, and I get the biggest kick out of the Plaid. I mean, a lot of internal combustion guys, a lot of that are like hardcore internal combustion guys, are going to look at something like the Plaid as being like the ultimate like insult, the ultimate like affront to the superiority of the internal combustion engine. And I look at it and I'm like, go baby, go 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, right? A 9-second quarter mile, and this thing is like dead quiet. It'll handle 6 passengers and all of that. I mean, it's like, go, that's just bitching. They lose me with all of the crazy, in my opinion, the unnecessary tech that goes with it. Like I said, if the Tesla S or the Plaid was something that, let's say, came with roll down windows, right, a regular steering wheel, and a giant pole switch that you go bam like that and pour it on, I'm in. You know what I mean? Point me to the dealer. I'm buying one. Period. The end. Thank you, She. I think the big thing that electrics are missing is a sense of violence. Holy shit, no, you're wrong. You're so wrong. Go watch, listen to me, right? If you're a car guy, you need to watch this because it's I'm telling you, and I watched it like 3 times, 4 times, right? This Doug DeMauro road test of the Plaid, which is what got me thinking about this, right? He hits this thing, okay? So he's like, he's driving along. He's like, yeah, it feels good. It's this, it's comfortable. The steering wheel's light, da, 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 da. He says, and now I want to see what everybody's talking about. And the next thing you know, he's like this. He's like, and he's got this look of just horror on his face, okay? And he's got like no words to go with it. And then, and like after a couple of seconds of like trying to get his thoughts together, he says, I'm not acting. And he says, what just happened there? He says, worlds opened up. Right? Like, this thing was so brutally, just violently, like fast. It blew his mind right out of his head. So yeah, no, I think you're missing the point there. They're extremely violent. Mopar then, thank you. My neighbor bought an Ego battery lawnmower. It can't finish his lawn without using additional batteries that cost $349 each. He returned the mower and went back to a gasoline power. If you watch my channel, you'll notice I don't use any battery power tools. Everything I own. Now I know it's the popular deal, right? It's like electric, the battery screwdrivers, battery impact guns, battery this, battery that, battery the other thing, right? I don't have any of them. I just, they're like, when they first came out, when battery stuff first came out, I had a few things. I had a battery powered Sawzall. I had a battery powered, a couple of different things, right? And I was so enraged when I was in the middle of like working on something and the battery would start to go weak. You know what I mean? I was like, I gotta stop what I'm doing and either go plug in another battery, or you forget to plug in the battery, or whatever it happens to be. I was like, no, cords. Everything I have is gonna get plugged in. You know what I mean? And so that's Stephen Hancock, $2. Thank you, sir. What do you think of Dodge's new EV muscle car? I have to plead ignorance. I don't know anything about it yet. I saw like a blurb about it someplace, but I don't know anything about it. Larry Gomez, you're just kicking in $5 just for general purposes. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Need metal. You'll be able to buy a real Dodge Charger, right? Yeah. It says the great grandfather. The very first thing that you could take, you trace the Mopar lineage back, right? The very, very first Mopar was an EV in 1895. Don Steele, I don't think our present power grid will support charging 50 million electric vehicles. No, of course not, or anything close to it. Most people drive in the day and park at night when solar and winds are useless. Again, it's absurd. It's absurd. So you just take an area like California, right, where they regularly have rolling blackouts. So now they've got like 3%, whatever it is. It's a small percent, 2, 3, 4% of their fleet of California is EVs. Okay, and even with just that, they still have rolling blackouts. Now imagine if it's 20% of their fleet. There's just no way. It's impossible. It cannot be done. And especially can't be done without using nuke. And nobody wants to have nuclear power plants. There's no way you can feed a fleet, a society of electric vehicles without nuclear power. It cannot happen. So I missed somebody's super chat. Oh, okay. Mr. Will, I'm sorry I missed yours. I'm trying to get this to... I've seen this scenario 4 times in my life. Gas gets expensive, the electric car idea gets steam, gasoline gets cheap, and the electric car idea goes away, and the public buys big. I saw the same thing. I remember in the middle 1970s, there was a whole rush to like these little battery cars, a city car, and all these other things. Yeah, exactly. It's what happens. There's a bogus oil crisis, because none of the oil crises are true. All of the oil crisis all had to do with exchange rates as a concern gold and that's all it is. If you go back and you look at things that happened in the gold market, immediately following something in the gold market, there was something having to do with oil shortage, right? Because the traditional price of a barrel of oil is 1/10 ounce of gold. So forever, the oil was sold at 42. Gold was $32 an ounce on the official books. It was 32 ounces for a barrel of oil, or $3.20. So and oil gold went to $42 an ounce, the official number for it, not the traded number, but the official number for it, and oil was $4.20 a barrel. And then they cut the exchange, they cut the relationship. Nixon closed the gold window with the national redemption in August 1971, and at that point, that drove the OPEC guys crazy now, because there was no direct payment for their oil in gold. So that's when it went from $4.20 a barrel to like $20 a barrel. Wait, I'm missing the super chats. Okay, Ruslan. Okay, Ruslan. EV is not the future. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. EV is not the future. If they want to go full EV by 2035, they would need to build one nuclear power plant every week for a decade straight. I have the numbers to prove it. If you want an email, no, you don't have to prove it to me. I know it's absurd. I know it's impossible. I know it can't be done. So you don't have to prove it to me. I'm good, brother man. Let's see, did I miss a different one? Go back further. I missed Thomas Servia's super chat. I have to try to find it. Stephen Hancock. Thomas Servia. Okay. $5. Thank you, sir. The EV is fast, but it doesn't have the sound and feel of a well-built motor. You can feel the motor thump. The sound of what you built is orgasmic. I mean, I agree with you, and I'm an internal combustion guy, right? I'm a gearhead first. Okay, I'm fascinated by machinery that creates motion, right? So I'm a gearhead first. I love steam locomotives. I love diesel locomotives. I love internal combustion engines. And in that universe are EVs, electric motors. And I mean, like the electric motor kind of has its own thing. You know what I mean? Okay. So like, forget about this. Like because they go out of their way to make them quiet because they don't want to hear the whine, right? But electric motors and straight cut gears and all of that they have their own sound. You know what I mean? They have their own feel. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Yeah, my favorite thing in the world is the internal combustion engine. But electric motors can be extremely cool. Oh, Jesus. Larry Gomez. Thank you, sir. I think the biggest problem will be government intervention tracking your speeding, and sending tickets in the mail, as well as bricking car for missed registration or insurance. Sometimes money gets tight, They're already there with that. I mean, literally, the newer cars, they can track everything, every pedal movement, everything that happens. And now with the cameras, they can actually go back and watch everything that happens. So I mean, that's on one hand, you look at it and you say, well, okay, so it's our freedom is going away. We don't have, you know what I mean? And on the other hand, you could look at it and say, well, now people have to be accountable for what they do. So it's like, I'm both ways. Like the anarchist in me and says, and I'm mostly an anarchist. The anarchist in me says, screw this, screw the system, screw the man. I don't want anybody to know what I'm doing, right? And then, but the person who actually has to exist in society says, you know what? If this keeps drunk drivers off the road, if this keeps idiots from doing stupid things, like I'm on my way over here, and I had this woman look back at. I'm driving along. Okay, on my way here tonight. I'm driving along, and I'm in a subdivision. Okay, pulling out of a subdivision, and a woman in an SUV, right? pulls out of her driveway backwards at full throttle into traffic. I'm just driving along, and here she comes backwards out of her driveway, just like this, into traffic. It's going both ways with no regard at all. Well, you know what? She needs somebody watching her ass. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, I see it both ways, man. I see it both ways. Drag Boss, why'd you send? You don't have to spend money, brother. Thank you so much. Hey, Kat, Drag Boss just bought us lunch. Drag Boss. Thank Kathy's over here printing shirts while I'm doing this.
Thank you, guys.
Have we sent Drag Boss any merch?
No, we have to.
Yeah. Hey man, we got to.
I need his address now.
Send Kathy your address so she could send you a shirt and some stuff. Uncle Tony's Garage at gmail.com. Fubar, what's going on? I didn't see you in there, brother man. Drag Boss isn't here to defend the 429 Boss. I never said anything bad about the Boss 429. It's the camera I have a problem with. This is an interesting one. Canaprocus. Stephen Hancock's solar, wind, water can absolutely cover everything. I work on the engineering side. The math is there. The math is there, but there's a lot of times there's a disconnect between the math and the practical reality of things. You know, I mean, it's like I see. It's like it's like a hydropower. You know, I'll save this for another. Yeah, hydropower could probably answer all of our problems, but for some reason, the powers that be don't want hydropower to be a thing. James Chapman, we depend on government for gas and solar, plus batteries can be off grid. I mean, you got a point there. You got a point there, but how are you going to charge the battery? You know, you got to be on grid to charge the battery, unless you're using a generator, in which case you need fuel that you're going to get from the government. So I mean, you know. Mexican spec. Take this to its logical outcome. If everybody depends on the government for electricity, it can be shut off and you don't drive anywhere. But there's no different than everybody relying on gasoline, because they could shut those pumps off as well. This is an interesting one. Megan Schmall. Hey, UT, do you remember the GM EV1 electric car incident that happened during the late 90s, early 2000s? If you do, what do you think happened behind the scenes? It rings a vague bell. Can Megan, could you give us bring us up to speed on what that was? Or if somebody else knows what she's talking about? Um, Joe K. This is okay. Yeah, you, meaning me, we're just mentioning in the other video about the technology in a new Grand Cherokee. So now translate that to an EV. Lots more of it. No, you're absolutely wrong. An EV is as simple as a battery pack, a rheostat of some sort, and an electric motor. I mean, that literally is it. It can be okay. Here's the thing about EVs, right? An EV can be infinitely simpler than an internal combustion engine. An internal combustion car. You don't need a transmission. You don't need pistons. You don't need rods. You don't need camshaft. None of that. None of that. Okay. You need a battery pack. You need some sort of switch. Okay. I use my antiquated ideas, a rheostat, and a motor, and that's it. That's all you need. Okay, and you've got an EV. You've got a functional EV. So no, and yes, the way they build EVs today, they're technologically perverse. There's way too much. They're done. They're done in my opinion, they're designed in an extremely foolish and wasteful way. But on the flip side, if you wanted to make an EV simpler than an internal combustion engine, you absolutely could. There is nothing to, it's a simple circuit, right? With a switch and a motor and go. So yeah, no. Um, Geez, I'm not going to comment on this, but I'm just going to read it. Okay, so read between the lines. EV means American dependency on China and Afghanistan for raw materials and slave labor to build suitable batteries. They also require the consumption of fossil fuels to create enough electricity. Okay. Um, Peter Kovacs will be using uh, cap, cap, capacitance gel like in demolition. I don't know what that is. Pure stress. Thank you, sir. How about the Kia EV6 that could keep up with most supercars on a 100 meter dash, at least in their own commercial. Also, check out the crazy noise it makes. I will check that out. Daughter of Truth, gas is greener than electric power plants. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Tom Thumb, batteries and the chargers can be homemade wind power or pedal power for charging, no gas or electric. To go where? You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, if you want to charge up a lawnmower to run across your lawn, yeah, you could do it like that. But to actually create a functional vehicle that you're going to use through the course of the day, stop and go traffic and commuting and so on and so forth, no. Ryan Coates, thank you, sir. Uncle Tony, when can we expect you to slant six swap a Tesla? I know there's lots of us would love to see it happen. Cheers from Fort Mac, Alberta. Uh, maybe I can get together with Rich Rebuilds and we can do a slant six swap Tesla. I tell you the truth. I think those things, once you get over the battery pack out, I think they'd be featherweight and probably be an excellent swap for a slant six. Let's see. Rich Rebuilds and Uncle Tony being insane in a good way. Yeah, I don't know. I love that. He was one of the first channels that I checked out when we started doing YouTube. I watched a bunch of channels when we first got started just to get an idea what was going on. And Rich Rebuild's channel was just great. I love it. He's so straightforward, man. He's just he's a go getter. So yeah, I would love to work with him. Ari, what's happening, man? Mr. Classic Car in the USA. Funny thing is, in some parts of Europe, there are no speed limits. Some peeps love bombing down the Autobahn. EVs just overheat the battery and go into low power mode when pushed. I mean, yeah, that's one of the drawbacks of them. Adrenaline channel. But yeah, exactly. I don't know why people are so worried about the government tracking them in the car. Your phone is already doing that, and people think they have to share their lives with everyone on social media. You're absolutely right. Well, you know what? Not only your phone is doing that, right? Your refrigerator, your smart refrigerator is doing that. Your smart TV is doing that. Alexa is doing that. People open themselves up to all sorts of. Please, it's ludicrous. Okay, they're doing everything but literally reading your mind. Okay, and actually they are. They're using artificial intelligence to predict all of your movements based on what you've watched, how long you watched it, where you watched it. But you know what I'm saying? Like they are reading your mind. That's what artificial intelligence is. So yeah, and people get all freaked out about, oh, they know if I hit the gas in my car, right? Please. D. Scaglin, I sent a super chat for the Internal Combustion crowd and Enterments. I missed it, brother, man. I missed it. I'm so sorry. They were coming. They were coming fast. Let me roll back. Oh God, how far I got to go back? This is. I can't find it, but thank you, man. I appreciate it. Um, AI is a clear and present danger. Just figuring that out. You just, I'm 25 years ahead of you, man. Thomas Serbia, thank you. What do we think about Smokey's hot vapor tech theory? I don't want to really get into that very much, right? I don't want to get. I think that was. I think he overthought it. I can't give an educated enough opinion on it. I understand the basic idea behind it, but I don't know the practical application of it and where it fell short. So I don't really know. But I'll tell you what. So I'll tell you what. Somebody who does know, and it's David Vizard, because he was tight with Smokey Ioniq, and he was actually involved in that whole we had a long discussion about the hot vapor tech, the hot vapor engine, on a live that we did with David. So that's something. That's something. If you're really interested about it, David Vizard, when you see him pop up on a live, jump in there and ask him a question. He can give you the details on it. But I think I don't want to say Smokey jumped the shark on that, but he might have. He might have. We don't know because nobody's picked up where he's left off. Uh, Dave Kuhn 13. Did you see Michael Moore's Planet of Humans documentary on YouTube that shows EVs are a scam? I didn't, but I will. Let me tell you, Roger and me, and that sequel that he did. I know Michael Moore and I have politics going. Actually, I mean, we're diametrically opposed to each other, but he's a brilliant filmmaker, and he's not stupid. So yeah, I have to check that out. It's called Planet of the Humans. I am definitely going to watch that. Um, Racing with power motors. Okay, and this came up too. In my head, because I saw it yesterday. I think it was. Did you talk about the Bolt battery fire recall? GM suing LG for $1 billion. They're recalling every single one of these cars now because of this. Every single one. Um, I don't know the details on it because, like I said, it was just a quick thing that came up. I think it was on Zero Hedge. I just read it real quick while I was doing other things, waiting for something else. So I didn't really absorb very much of it, but it did pop up, and I did see that. Michael Moore knows how to blow smoke up your ass. That may or may not be true. He's still a brilliant filmmaker. So, you can't take, you know what I mean? You can't take that away from him. You know what I'm saying? You can't take that away from him. DBC 105, you all know it takes electricity to make gasoline, right? Where is that electricity that the gasoline is? I mean, what's the source of that electricity? Is it, you know what I'm saying? It's not like the refineries are taking an extension cord and plugging it into the grid, right? Where is that electricity coming from? It's probably being generated through diesel. It's like a perpetual motion thing. We use what they call fossil fuel. I hate to use the word fossil fuel because I don't believe fossils have anything to do with it. But I mean, yeah, they're using fuel to make electricity to make more fuel. It's a circle. Mr. Classic Car in the USA. Used EVs are really cheap here in the UK, especially Nissan Leafs with dead batteries. I can imagine. Planet of the Humans is a great documentary. I am going to watch that the minute we wrap this up, I am going to watch that. Old Jetfire, how you doing, my friend? That is the same as 60 to 80 gallons of oil in every wind generator. I don't know. I missed. New City Carpet. If the EVs had a personality, example, 1930 Studebaker pickup, 1955 Chevy, 59 Cadillac, etc., instead of looking like those EVs from Woody Allen's movie Sleeper, that was a great movie, right? Nobody knows that movie, right? Okay, you're right. I agree with you. The automakers, for some reason, and I don't know why, for some reason they've gone out of their way to style EVs in a way that's completely obnoxious, right? Instead of just giving them as a normal look, like even the ones that look relatively normal, they have to throw some sort of zinger in there so that you know at a glance it's not a normal car, and I don't know why they do that. Ruzian, Moore's Planet of the Humans will shock you. Brother man, no, nothing shocks me. I have seen it all. Jordan Edwards, I know I'm old school, but I'm still a younger guy and I'm being left behind, literally. No, no, you actually may be leading the charge because we've come to a point in society and civilization where I believe we're at a crossroads right now. And we advanced technologically further than we were than ever. Okay, take this for an example. Okay, you have all of the rules of the modern world. Okay, how things are supposed to run, and the roles of different the genders and all this other stuff, right? That are all modern things, but we're still 100,000-year-old beings, and we're wired for 100,000-year-old instincts. So no matter how you look at it, things are supposed to be this way, supposed to be that way. They really are this way. And so now tie that into cars, right? The cars use the material world, right? Very analog world that we're in. But it's all become so digital. It's become too digital. It doesn't really fit the environment that our society's evolved to. So you feel like you might be left behind right now, but don't, because undoing some of this mess and creating more user-friendly or analog machines down the road I believe is going to be a growth industry. So at some point down the road. So no, don't worry. Just keep pedaling on the basics, brother, man. Classic reaction. EVs are coming whether we want them to or not. Either you get on a train and ride it or you'll get left at the station. I, for one, welcome our electric overlords. Like I said at the very beginning of this, I have absolutely nothing at all against EVs. And if the Tesla was had a different if the Tesla was a mechanically simple device, right? Batteries, simple controls, motor, right? I would be online right now to buy one. I absolutely, I want a 9-second car, right? I want something that goes 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, a 9-second car, right? That I could just tool around anywhere and plug into my outlet to charge. I'm all in. Let's go. Let's do this. Where they lose me is with the touch screen and all of the other stuff, and that's where I'm just like, there's just no way. I'm just, I stop right there. So I have no problem with EVs. I have a problem with the technology that they build in around them. Edward Speccarelli, will the price of electricity skyrocket? What do you think? What do you think? I mean, okay, so here's the hypothetical situation, and I don't think it's possible. I mean, I'm going to go out and say in my opinion, it's impossible to create this EV revolution like they're talking. This is a bunch of dreamers that are putting this out there. Unfortunately, the dreamers have their hands on the checkbook right now, right? So, but just imagine if they did. Think of all of the taxes that are collected through fuel sales and oil sales and all of the things that go along with maintaining the internal combustion car, right? The internal combustion device. Now take away all of those taxes, right? Where do you think that money is going to come from? It's going to be electricity, right? So it's got to come from someplace. And then, of course, Joe K. Joe K, I feel like a simple EV can't exist because those who want them want all the bells and whistles in it. I would love to sit down with Elon Musk for an hour and talk about the potential of building like I'm going to put that on my list of things to do. Just a basic, brutal, analog, simple, lightweight, right, device. We're probably one in the eights. Tax bond and mileage tax, yeah, that's all fine, except that I can't do it, and I don't know if you can or not, but like any 12-year-old kid out there right now is going to be able to hack around the mileage, whatever is sending a signal for the mileage that you're covering. No, there'll be plugins. I don't know what the device will be, but there'll be a way to alter that somehow, just like changing the speedometer gear, to make it read different, or adjusting the odometer. There's no way that they can impose a broad tax like that and not have 10,000 entities come out of the woodwork with a way to defeat it. So no, that's not going to happen. Hey, UT, ask Elon about his grandfather. Bob, I don't know anything about his grandfather. What was his grandfather? Peter Kovacs, ask Elon Musk to build a stripper sleeper EV minimal tech. Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's a market for it. There's a market for it. I missed a super chat from Ethan. Did I? I'm sorry. Yes, Ethan, I am sorry. Ethan Bunch, a little off topic, but thank you for helping my passion. You're a household neighbor on my house. Oh God, I don't deserve that. Um, and I'm getting ready to build a new 312 for my truck. Thank you so much for inspiring and teaching me. I hope you read this. I read it, Ethan. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really do. Some of you guys leave me a lot to live up to, and I thank you. Yeah, guys, I would like to leave politics out of this, right? I know it's almost impossible to leave politics out of it, but I would like to leave politics out of it because we're talking about cars, we're talking about the mechanical and the social implications of it, but not the political ones. So let's leave that out. Darrell Brisson. A lot of people playing with cars on YouTube are becoming philosophers like Bad Chat. Is he a philosopher? That's cool. You know what? I tell you what. You know what? We spend car people, right? Car people spend a lot of time thinking. We spend a lot of time. You know what? Let me tell you something. We spend a lot of time doing mindless, needless, like thankless work. Okay, like like for instance, things like scraping undercoating or cleaning parts or doing whatever. It just takes or sanding stuff, and it just takes hours and hours and hours and days and weeks, right? And you just keep and you're doing this mindless work. So you know what happens? You start to think, and while you're sitting there scrubbing, cleaning, grinding, whatever it is that you're doing, okay, sanding, you're thinking and you're thinking about the implications of this and that and the other thing. And I guess we all kind of like develop a little bit of a philosophical bent to our you know what I mean? So I could see that. We don't, I mean, we don't, I'm sure he's not trying to be a philosopher. I'm not trying to be a philosopher, but it happens. It's a byproduct. Um, Dakota, what's happening, brother, man? Uh, It's going to be all self-driving cars. If you want to drive your car, it's going to have to be on a closed course. That's the ultimate goal to make regular cars illegal to be on the road. Dakota, that can never happen, right? Don't stress it. Yes, they can map every square inch of the globe, right? And just use your GPS on your phone, right? They can map every square inch on the phone, and they can give directions on every square inch. But the road situations, the real situations, okay, like for instance, they can't, the forward facing camera cannot see the kid running off from the side chasing his ball into the street to apply the brakes just like that. It's just, it doesn't, you see what I'm saying? There are too many, there's an infinite number of variables that happen in the real world of driving, that GPS and self-driving cars cannot account for, at least not yet. It's not going to happen in your lifetime. So don't stress that. George Demakis. Uncle Tony, you're by far the best YouTuber I've ever seen. Thank you. I appreciate that. You're an excellent mechanic, but an immense. I don't want to blow. I don't want to blow my home. Thank you so much, George. I appreciate that. Apex seals. Your average human doesn't account for that and turns the kid into a speed bump. No, that's not true. That's not true. The average yeah, I gotta tell you something. The average person, even though the average person isn't like the sharpest driver in the world, and there's a lot of distractions. No, man, I see people do some pretty impressive moves to avoid things and whatnot. I don't know. Curtis. Okay, let's see. Curtis Randolph, they're going to build self-driving roads right down the center of our highways. That's what I hear. Would that be such a terrible thing, right? I mean, again, see, I'm anti-tech, right? When I say anti-tech, I don't want things to be taken out of my control. But I'll tell you what, man, I have made countless. I've zigzagged across this country. I've got countless interstate miles under my belt. And let me tell you something. The idea of tucking into a lane, putting put my head back, my feet up, and just like, you know what I mean, zoning out or watching a movie or something as I'm going down the road. Well, that's not such a bad idea. That's not such a terrible thing. But that's not completely self-driving cars. You still, at some point, you're going to have to retake control of this car and navigate it through all of the little minutia of life. So, you know, that's I don't see that as being a terrible thing, Curtis. CBR Turbo 72. I thought I was the only one that understands just how complex a self-driving car really is. Paul Cabazzola, I can't believe an EV would be practical here in Vermont when the temperature goes well below zero during the winter. Well, you're right, and it wouldn't be, you know, and that's the thing, right? The range, right? The wear, it's just no. It's not practical. Gabardine suit. The only place I see EV taking over is like forklifts and yard goat type applications where they will be charged nightly anyway. Currently, it is batteries life is showing their age. Yeah, but you know what? You're not going to see it because if that was if EVs were an efficient way to go for forklifts and like that type of thing, you would have seen it eons ago. They use propane, right? For the most part, they use propane. That's their fuel of choice for that sort of thing. Um, I don't see that. I don't see that as being a thing. Racing repair motors and consider EVs in mountainous areas. Well, but yeah, okay, yeah, exactly. Okay, an EV in a cold mountainous area. No, it's not a good choice. It's not going to happen. And the worst part about that is, you know, it's the kind of thing where, you know, if the thing just happens to get stuck going up a hill, you know, that charge isn't going to last very long. You can milk your gasoline, you know, keep the heater going. You know what I mean? You can idle your shit for a really long time, keeping the heat going. I don't think you have that same longevity with an EV motor, with a battery. Dog bite compound. Paris, France bans all gas-powered cars by 2030 in the city. You know what? I see a lot of cities. It's not just Paris, and I can't think of the other ones, but there are other cities that are doing the same thing, right? But it's see that's the thing. In theory, it's fine, but let them get to that point. You know what I mean? Let them get to where it's 2030, and okay, no more gasoline powered cars inside the city. You have to wait until you actually get there. I believe that it would be an impossible thing to regulate, to police, to actually pursue, right? But let them find out. So they want to ban gasoline powered cars in the city by 2030. Fine, it's a prerogative. It's their jurisdiction. Okay. But I don't think they can do it. I think by 2031, they will have said, no, go ahead, bring your gas powered car in. We're good. Peter Kovacs, EVs low on power will be clogging highways everywhere. Captain, we're losing power. Yeah, exactly. Redford Toffelin. Power density isn't there for electricity right now. Look at how a small tank of gas is compared to the massive batteries in electric cars. Well, you think of it this way, right? Let's just say for the sake of argument. So right now it takes 12 hours to get a full charge on whatever car that you're talking about, right? On any given car. And I'm only throwing round numbers out. So let's just say you buy a new EV and you get a 300-mile range with the heat on or the wipers, whatever it is, right? It's an average 300-mile range and it takes 12 hours overnight to charge it. Now let's just say they get this thing down to a supercharged where you can recharge the whole thing in 20 minutes, right? So in 20 minutes you go from dead to fully charged. Okay, that's fine. But now you've got these charging stations. So let's just say they set them up like gas pumps, right? Where you've got, you pull into a typical gas station and there's going to be, 8, 10, 12 bays, right? Still 20 minutes. It's 5 minutes to fill up a gasoline car. It's 20 minutes to top off an electric car. Well, think about like if you live in a city, if you live in a bigger town, an active town like I do, right? Typically, during the middle of the day, there's a line, right? You've got to wait 1 or 2 deep to get to the pumps, and it's only a 5 minutes. It's only a 5-minute fill. What happens if it's a 20-minute fill or 20 minutes to top off the battery? You're talking about having massive backlog of people in line to get their batteries charged. Now throw adverse conditions in there. It's super hot. They got the air conditioner on. It's super cold. They got the heat on. They're sitting there with a basically dead battery. There are so many real world issues that have to be overcome for the EV to actually take over like everybody wants it to. Like the powers that be want to. Apex Seals, Dreamweaver, EMP event would render basically all cars useless and leave them far the coil in a vintage vehicle. No, it will not. What's this? The Mexican spec. After watching Shmi having to go to 3 different chargers to get his car charged, it's going to be crazy when so many don't work well. Yeah, I don't know who Shmi is and I don't know what he went through, but Mr. Will, why do I feel in the not too distant future this EV subject will go away again? Because it will. It absolutely will. Really, King, my mechanical diesel doesn't care about your hypothetical EMP. Very well put. Okay. Oh, did this thing freeze? Uh-oh, I think I froze here. Okay, there it goes. Let me see. Toad XY, I love how we're all assuming everyone will own a car in the future. Exactly what mechanism do you think will be put in place to take private, okay, let's see again, now we're talking about the average person. We're not talking about you or I who are enthusiasts and we own our cars, okay? Like, we own them to the point that, we build them, all right? So not taking us out of the equation, not talking about us. The average person who's not watching this channel, who's not a car person at all, it's just their car. Do they own their car? They don't own their car. They don't own their car. It's either leased or they're paying a note on it, right? They pay either way. They don't actually own it. Miss a payment or two payments, however many payments it is, they lose that car. They don't actually own that car anyway. But that's besides the point. At what point do you think what device, what mechanism would be put in place to take cars away from the average person? Tell me how that could happen. Anthony Perna, if people are so worried about emissions, we should go back to steam. Everyone can have a Stanley steamer. You know, that's the funny thing, right? With like you see like a steam locomotive, and it's like giant plumes of black smoke, like just huge, right? But it's just soot. It just falls to the ground. You know what I mean? It's really they're actually pretty because they're burning wood or coal. Or, you know, they're actually pretty green things. Neo Voodoo Tech. Carbon fiber personal blimps will how we get around. I'm down for that. Kevin Coulter, EVs will need to have a quick change battery attached to bottom of car. I know, yeah, I've seen them. I've seen them speculate about that. How that's a way they could do it. That you would have these battery exchange places where you pull in, they drop your battery pack out, they plug another battery pack in, and you're off on the road fully charged. Uh, I don't see that as happening. They're just the size, the weight, the complexity of something like that is just not only that, but connections. At that point, you're not going to have solid connections to make it that quick. It's going to be like a cell phone. You know, we plug the battery in, plug the battery out. Those connections like that, I don't see them as being very efficient. You know, in the long haul. They get dirty and not. You know, Mexicans say battery change won't happen. How do you know the condition of the battery you get? Well, no, see, that's one of the proponents of having everybody go electric. One of the things that they propose is that you just instead of charging, you pull in like you said when you go to a gas station and fill up your gas tank. You know that instead of having to pull into a gas station and get your and plug in your EV, instead you just swap batteries out. So you never have the same battery. Every time you need to charge, you're swapping out for a fresh battery. But I can't imagine the logistics of that ever actually happening. Rusty Water, just pull in, switch out a trailer, rent it like it's a propane cylinder. Yeah, that's exactly, that was the example. That was in my head and I couldn't get it out, but yeah, like a propane tank exchange. Joe K, planned obsolescence will hit the EV market big time. There's only so long you can keep updating your battery. They'll have to just replace the whole car. Well, that's the biggest thing. I mean, that's EV cars are essentially disposable because it's $10,000 to swap out a battery. So if the thing lasts 5 years, what is the car worth on the fair market in 5 years? Now you've got to throw 10 grand at it. That's a major chunk of cash. Jeremy Wampler, Tony, do you think this new EV craze is part of the so-called alternate universe I've read so much about since 2012? No, no. I have my own thoughts on what is behind it all, but I would rather keep to myself because there's just it's my own speculation, and I would just rather keep what I believe is the motivating factor behind all of this, along with a lot of other things. I'd like to keep that because that's just pure opinion, and we're not talking about that sort of thing. Here comes the voodoo. Planet of the Humans. That documentary shows what is behind it all. I am going to watch that. Absolutely. As soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to watch that. French Onion, you think nitro is the most logical fuel? Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that, you know? Jeremy Wampler, Tony, I'm intrigued. Honestly, please do a rando conspiracy chat. No, I have to be very careful because of things that have to do with this platform and everything. I have to be very careful, where these discussions go if we want to keep having these discussions. Gabardine Suit, do you think there will come a craze with cheap EV chassis once the battery is dead for IC conversions? Very possible. Very possible. I mean, no matter how you look at it, there's still rollers. You know what I mean? It's still a body and an interior and everything else. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I could see the performance market. Let me tell you something. You go right now. You go to any wrecking yard, any like you go to pull apart, okay, and you see cars in there, right? That are pristine, perfect paint. I was just over a pull apart last week, okay, and there was a what year? I couldn't tell the year. It was a Jeep Commander, right? Not the most popular thing in the world as far as Jeep people go, but there was a Jeep Commander in there that was pristine. I mean, the paint was shiny front to back. The interior was perfect. And there was nothing visibly wrong anywhere in this vehicle, but yet there it was in a pull apart. Somebody scrapped it. Somebody off this thing for $300, right? So I could see the aftermarket coming along. Like right now, you could buy a crate motor, you could buy a crate chassis, you could buy set up rear ends and suspensions and stuff. I could see in the not too distant future a crate roller, all right, where there's your motor, your trans, your rear, the chassis, suspension, and everything, and then you just go and you buy one of these cars, whether it's a used up EV or any of these other cars that are just in the junkyard because of mechanical failure. Cut the body away, drop it down on this chassis, and there you go. I could absolutely see that becoming a thing in the very foreseeable future. Dropped dropped valve seats is why it was there. Gee, it went to crap. Well, I mean, okay, dropped valve seat, but I mean that's not a big deal. Shouldn't be a big deal, right? It should be a standard repair. But it's so over the top on these newer cars that yeah, that ended up there. Mr. Will, thank you. Mr. Will, UT, very important question. Will the motor you're building for bottle rocket see 650 to 700 horsepower? No. Um, Heath and Bunch, $5. Any thoughts on biofuels becoming a big thing to make the green nuts happy and keep internal combustion engine vehicles on the road? For some reason, the general public just does not accept diesel. and I don't know why. Now, I'm not a diesel guy myself. I'm a gasoline guy. I'm a spark plug guy. Okay, think of it that way, right? My preference is for things that have a spark plug. Um, but for some reason, and I do not know why, I can't fathom it, the general public, the great unwashed masses, have never accepted the diesel in any significant numbers. So I don't, I just don't know. I don't know, but it should. And he's right. Ethanol is a biofuel. I'm of the opinion that oil is a biofuel. You know, or that it's generated organically within the earth. It's just always being generated. I know, and I have. It goes against the whole fossil fuel. The fossil fuel thing. Also, dead dinosaurs, right? But it could not have happened that way. If you look at the vast amount of it that we've used, right? Take the just take the weight of the oil that we've burned since we started burning oil 100 and something years ago, right? There's just no way that much organic material existed on this planet to create all of that. So there's it's to think that oil, is my opinion. This is my opinion, right? I'm not stating fact. I'm going to state my opinion. To believe that oil comes from dead dinosaurs or plant life or swamps or anything like that is absurd. It's absurd just because of the sheer volume of what we're talking about. It was actually dead microorganisms from a mass seed die-off, as far as I know. Bro, do you know how? I want you to think about how much. Okay, just since we started this live, okay, just since we started this an hour and a half ago, right? I want you to think. I want you to try to imagine, right? In the world, okay, in the world, right? Here in the United States, your neighborhood, United States, Russia, Vietnam, everywhere, okay, everywhere. Think about how many vehicles are on the road right now and how much fuel combined they have burned, how much oil have they consumed in the last hour and a half. I want you to think of the vast volume of oil that was consumed on this planet since this live started. Now compound that 24/7 for the last 100 and something years. And you tell me there was that much of a mass die-off that had this just perfect circumstance where instead of it rotting and turning to dirt, it became oil, right? No, it's absurd. It's absurd. Red yellow oil is abiotic. It self-replenishes. If you look at the reserves estimate, they keep filling up. I know that. I know that. But tell that to everybody else. Okay. Danny Korinsky. Uncle Tony, I work in the semiconductor industry and have been running straight through this pandemic full speed, so I don't understand about this chip shortage they speak of. I know. Yeah, babe. Uh, AR501 Du Bois. Think about all of the oil fields burned into overseas and the oil spills that are still leaking. I know. Snow Crusher says my stupid is showing. I need to start talking about geology. Oil is created by pressure, water, and granite. Okay. James Chadman, point taken, but still not jazzed about putting all that carbon in the atmosphere. We need to close the loop. Again, see, I'm not an environmentalist, right? I'm not, uh, I don't, I can't participate in a discussion as to what is detrimental to the atmosphere and what is, because I don't know, right? I know that plants, thrive on discussion for a different. Mitten-made muscle oil is a byproduct of the Earth's core. It's the Earth's sweat, if you will. I believe that. I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying I believe it. French Onion says oil was brought here by ancient aliens, probably in those gallon containers, right? Ryan Coates, hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. It's impossible to run out of it. Why not use it? It's the packaging of it that's a problem. It's the gathering and the packaging of it. Trees live on carbon dioxide. Yeah, I know, but hydrogen leaks through anything. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. It's not a practical thing to package. Well, I mean, okay, so you talk about global warming. We've gone. Again, see, just my opinion. Just my opinion. I'm not saying it's fact. Just my opinion. So because these days you have to do that, right? So it's just my opinion. If it wasn't for global warming, we would still be under a 3 mile thick ice sheet. You know what I'm saying? Sean Wilburn, thanks, man. Buying a gallon of gas while it's still this cheap. It's 261 over here, so yeah, I can get a gallon and then some. Thanks, man. Mike and Will Connolly. All I know is I just bought a Hyundai Ioniq hybrid, and we're loving the 64 miles to the gallon. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, again, see, you got to go with. I would be all about having a hybrid in my fleet. I'm no problem with it. Again, I don't have any problem with these things, except for the way everything has been overdone from a computer control standpoint. If it was a simple charging system, if it was a simple, yeah, I'm all about it. But it's not. It's all done through processors and chips, and it's an overcomplication of a very simple idea. You know, it, the concept of the hybrid has been around since the beginning of the of individualized transportation. There's nothing new about it, but the way it's done today, to me, I don't want to have anything to do with it. But by all means, you're going to buy the car. It's your transportation at 64 miles to the gallon. Awesome. Would gasoline be obsolete? No, I cannot see in any of our lifetimes, the situation where something is woven into the global fabric of transportation, you can't get rid of it that quickly. The world as we know it was built around the capabilities of the internal combustion engine, not the other way around. The internal combustion engine didn't evolve to meet the needs of the world. The world evolved around the capabilities of the internal combustion engine. So unless you're going to completely reinvent the world, change everything across the board in one felt swoop and get everybody to go along with it, no, they are not going to just, it's impossible to divorce ourselves from gasoline anytime during our lifetimes. It's just not going to happen. Darren Bryson, too many cars on the grid is going to go rolling. Yeah. Cody Welch, agreed with the simple hybrid. We've had diesel electric locomotives for 60-ish years now. Try again, probably closer to 100 at this point. Was it 2021? Yeah, we've had diesel electric locomotives now for almost 100 years. Now, granted, they're not truly a hybrid because they're not storing, well, maybe they are. But the general idea is there, and it's brutally simple. James Chapman, I'm really concerned with the forced planned obsolescence for the sake of benefiting a few manufacturers. I would rather be pushed to e-bikes for city dwellers. I don't think you can push the general public to do anything the general public doesn't really want to do. I mean, I agree with you. Here in Nashville, they had a thing where they had free e-bikes, where they were all around the city. They had this is about 3 years ago, thereabouts, 4 years ago. They had stations where they had free e-bikes, where you just grab one and then just scoot around the city, and when you were done, you'd park it at another one of these stations. And I know that there were things where people were robbing them and they were having accidents with them and everything else. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Benjamin C. It's a shame Nick Tesla didn't get wireless electricity to work. We could all be driving around in carnival bumper cars. I mean, I've hair all standing out like this all the time, right? Zero data. I work at the plant that makes Rams in Michigan, and we were sent home today due to chip shortage. Yeah. Things are happening fast, isn't it? Right? Talk about the drain on the North American electrical grid. There's nothing to talk about. The grid can barely hang in there for what it is right now. You know what I noticed too over the last year or two? There are fewer EVs. Okay, so let's go back 3 years ago, 4 years ago, because they make the Nissan Leaf here in Middle Tennessee. And if you go back 3-4 years ago, it was actually more common to see EVs in traffic here. I'm going to say that they were probably around 1 or 2% of the overall automotive population here. And it's actually dropped. I see fewer and fewer of them. Now, I don't know if Nashville is representative of what happens in the rest of the country. I have no way. I can't speak for Chicago or New York or anything, but it appears to me that there are fewer EVs in regular traffic today than there were just 2 or 3 years ago. So, I mean, maybe it's some sort of confirmation bias on my part, and then I'm blind to these things. I don't know. I can't say for sure, but that's what it appears to me. Okay, I got some new comments here. Nathan N. What was that? Nathan, you're saying you're paying almost $1 a gallon tax by me. I know some places are crazy. All right, I'm trying to catch up here. Throttle It Up says they're getting more popular in Tampa for sure. Okay. Sean Draves, electric vehicle use is up 20% here in the last 3 years. Where are you, Sean? Zerin Sakic. Yeah, EVs are still in traffic in California where I am. The problem is the price of EV cars went up. They were so much cheaper then. I got my Nissan for $13,000, almost new at the time. What about the subsidies? Are they obviously they're going crazy with the subsidies? Would there be any EV sales without the subsidies? Rebel Angel Killer, you just made it here. Here's your thumbs up. D. Ole. So are we going to see a new generation of hot rodders, but with EVs? I absolutely believe so. There's no question about it. And here's the thing, right? I mean, we're talking about cars. So let's go back to that plaid, right? And if anybody who joined us, late and missed what I was talking about earlier at the very beginning of this video, I was watching um, uh, 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 Doug Demaro, and he did a road test on the Tesla Plaid, and the driving impression, like when he hit this thing, it blew his mind clear into another universe. It was just, I mean, you could see he was shocked. I mean, literally shocked, stunned by the acceleration of this thing. I was jealous. It looked like it was a fun ride, right? You have to go watch that that video to really understand what we're talking about. A car that goes 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, right? A 9-second quarter-mile car. Not many people get to experience that kind of hit, right? So, and here's the thing, now that's something that's tamed down, right? It's moderated for general consumption. Okay, so think about that for a second. It's a 9-second quarter-mile car that is out there that anybody can buy, which means that it's toned down. It's heavy. It has all sorts of things going on in it, right? And it's intended to be used by anybody, anywhere, anytime. Now imagine taking that car with 9-second quarter-mile potential, right? Stripping it down, hopping up the batteries, however that is done, reworking the motors, however that is done. I'm not an electrical guy, but again, see, hot rodders will find a way. You're talking about probably a 7 or a 6-second quarter-mile car that you could plug in at home, right? And it's not going to eat pistons, and it's not going to, it's like, do you understand what I'm saying? The potential, the hot rodding potential for these electric cars is off the chain. Now, will they take the place of conventional hot rods? I don't see me giving up any of my internal combustion hot rods in favor of an electric hot rod. But I would absolutely be game to add an electric hot rod to my fleet. So yeah, I think you're going to see a whole thing with this. So Zach, Zarin, hot rod EV direction. I can see that. That would add something good to the table, not take over. Okay, so here's an idea. This is an idea that I had back in the 70s, right? And then like in the 80s, and I never pursued it, right? They had the Turbonic drag axles, right? Which was a solid propellant rocket. Think about it, this is what they sold in the 60s, okay? It was a solid propellant rocket that you attached turbine, that you attached to your rear axle, okay? So, and they get ludicrous performance out of these things, right? How could you not? So way back when, I had the idea of incorporating an electric motor into the driveline between the engine, transmission, and the rear axle, and then using capacitors, putting a bank of capacitors, let's say, in the trunk of the car. So as you're driving along, you're charging up the capacitors. Now you want to go, okay? You want to hit the pedal and go. Well, now you unleash the capacitors into this electric motor that's attached to the rear end and get your mass moving. How fast would something like that be? How simple would it be for somebody to fabricate that all up? Somebody who's into this sort of thing could probably create, and that's a hot rods hybrid, a hot rodders hybrid. Guys, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark. I want to get some last licks in here. Anybody? Uh, Nick Plaze. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. I'm a green energy student. Biofuels are the only carbon neutral fuels. I run a 50-50 mix in all my vehicles, including a 1987 Chevy van. They all run great, and I can put 10,000 miles on each oil change. Okay. UT, but how heavy will it be? You mean the motor with the capacitors? I don't know. What are you going to add? 100 pounds to the car? 125 pounds? And think about how much instant torque you're going to throw at this thing. No. And the weight's in the right place. Ryan Coates, thank you, man. UT, speaking of Plaid, have you ever watched Spaceballs? Yeah, I remember seeing that. One of the best movies ever. I'm going to need to watch it again after The Planet of the Humans. Yeah, Spaceballs was good. I think that's where ludicrous speed came from, right? Richard Strock Messerschmitt Inc. Can you use magnetic piston? Oh God, that's brilliant, Richard. That is it. That's the kind of advanced thought. That's the kind of advanced thought that I live for. That's amazing, brother, man. Let me read this. Can you use magnetic piston domes and electromagnetic pistons to push pistons extra push on intake stroke? electromagnetically influenced pistons could be, brother man, let me tell you something. You need to float that idea by somebody smarter than me, okay? Because I am not smart enough. I am not well versed enough to really see the full picture on that. But what you've got there, right? That little idea, that kernel of like brilliance that you just put out there is something that needs to be looked into. I have never heard of that. And it seems to me like that would be just pure, absolute brilliance. Drop that on somebody smarter than me, brother man. They're out there. There's lots of them out there. Find somebody and drop that on them. David Bizard might be a good guy to talk to about that. Well, okay. Neo Voodoo Tech would not add enough force to matter. Don't say that. No, okay. You're saying they tried that in Formula One cars? They tried also in Formula. I have never heard of that. I've heard, and I'm familiar with the pneumatic valve thing. I'm familiar with the direct valves. You know, I'm familiar with all of that. I have never once heard of electromagnetically um, controlled or influenced pistons. That's something that can be done. That's something that can be done, and that's something that could be absolutely brutal if it could be made to work. Rusty water. You would need impregnated coils, but make the metals work. You might be able to get the electricity to act as a spark plug at night everywhere, like a diesel. There's no reason why you couldn't have magnetic cylinder walls. There's no reason you couldn't have the cylinder wall itself couldn't be magnetic. Jesus, that is a brilliant idea. Prove me wrong. I'd love to see it done. I'm pretty sure it's been tried though. I have never heard of that. I have heard of. Look, I'm a nerd, brother man. I sit around. I try to absorb. I try to absorb all sorts of like is significant like improvements or ideas, experiments. And listen to me, right? I have never once heard of anybody in any realm attempting to influence the movement of pistons electromagnetically. Never once have I heard that. That is just absolutely off the chain brilliance. I don't know how it can be done, but somebody can figure that out. And you're talking about an engine that could make. I look. It's like an unimaginable amount of power out of a setup like that. Paul Cavazos. So you would change polarity depending on whether the piston is moving up or down in the bore. Yeah, which I mean, there would be a fairly simple switching device that could be built into the crank. I'm sure there's a zillion ways to accomplish that. Floating crank in a magnetic field. Kyle Teal, floating crank in a magnetic field. Okay, there you go again, right? This is okay. Kyle, that's another thing I never thought about. But why couldn't you do that? Why couldn't you take a portion of the crankshaft, a counterweight or two, right? And or what would be in the counterweight area, or let's say a dedicated area at the front or the back of the crankshaft that is dedicated to it's an armature that the crankshaft, the front of the crank or the back of the crank. Let's just you have to use the back of the crank would become an armature. Why couldn't you do that? Okay, Benjamin C. Looks like there are already a few patents on electromagnetic piston engines. Just Googled it. I have to look into this. Yeah, Paul, that's my next six build. Oh man, a balance shaft armature. Let me see here. CMDR Reg World. The amount of power to generate the fields would be too great for our current electricity storage and generation technologies. We need better batteries, and batteries are the problem. Neo Voodoo Tech, some of these ideas would make a very low friction engine. Well, let me tell you something, man. That's how things evolve. Okay. Sometimes you'll come up with an idea that's just so completely out of left field, but it causes you to think of a device in a different light, right? And then as you work through all of the various, well, this won't work because of this won't work. But why can't you do this? But why can't you do that? Sometimes it's a short trip, and sometimes it's a really long trip, and sometimes where you end up is very far from where you started. But these are the types of thoughts that create the kind of innovation that this is brilliance. This is great conversation. This is great thought. Agreed for a full float magnetic field crank idea. Seriously, why not? Paul Cavazol, electromagnetic driven flywheel, no crank pistons. Well, now you've seen that, but now you're talking about just an electric motor. If you're talking about an internal combustion engine, if you're talking about combining an internal, not combining, you're talking about enhancing an internal combustion engine with magnets. With that's a whole different thing. That's what I'm talking about. Can you take the internal combustion engine and actually enhance it with, let's say, eliminating all of the friction by having a magnetically bound. There's so many. I can't even get my thoughts together on that. This is good stuff. Now my wheels are going to be turning like crazy for the next couple of days. I'm almost sorry we started this. Danny Boyd, magnetically floating crank would need some strongest magnets to keep the combustion events from pushing the crank into the block. I'm sure it's out there. Wouldn't it just be an air compressor? No, it would still be an internal combustion engine, but what you're doing is by using magnets to suspend the crankshaft and using magnets to overcome the pumping losses, right, during the rest of the cycle, and allowing just the you're eliminating all of the parasitic losses that are inherent in the internal combustion engine. You eliminate all of those parasitic losses through magnetism, and you're talking about, I mean, you're talking about 100% efficiency, right? You don't think about it, okay? You're talking about an internal combustion engine that's going to be like 90 to 100% efficient. Think about that. Solenoid control valves, no valve training camshaft. That's already done. That's been standard fare in like Formula One for a long time now. Yeah, the free valve engine, right? Timothy Keith, the free valve camless engine is a potential way to reduce friction and have much greater variability in valve timing. Free valve works, but is it reliable? Well, I agree with you on that. Is it reliable? But I mean, what I'm talking about, there's so many things going through my head right now. I'm sorry, guys. This is what happens, right? But yeah, the free valve engine has been a thing for a while now. Oh, Jesus. BDAN 1324, an internal combustion engine will never be 90 to 100% efficient. Take away parasitic frictional losses, right? And pumping losses. Take those two things away, and you tell me how efficient the damn thing is going to be. Throw a number at it. All right, we're over the 2 hour mark. I'm going to end this thing because I got stuff to do. But this, what a, I'm so glad I decided to do this. This was a great discussion. And you know what? We're gonna pick up on this because over the next week or two, I'm gonna when I've got some head space, I'm gonna look into all this, including the patents that I don't remember who it was that brought it up, but he says there's already patents on stuff like this. I gotta look into all that, and I think we're gonna have another discussion about this, right? I, I, I'll throw one. I'll throw something at you guys that's unrelated to electric cars, but kind of related to electricity and internal combustion engines. And it was something I saw on Donut Media did a video. One of the guys on Donut Media did a video about ozone and using an ozone instead of, because ozone has 3 oxygen molecules, right? Ozone is just a badass thing in terms of, right? Okay, so what would be involved in combining an ozone generator into the intake tract of an internal combustion engine and using it like nitrous oxide? So there's a lot of things that I got to get back to slant sixes and stuff like that. All right. So yeah, this is all great discussion, and we're going to come back and we're going to do this again in a couple of weeks, right? In the meantime, all you guys that got your wheels turning, keep your wheels turning. This is great stuff, right? But I'm going to call it quits. And I got to thank our mods as always, John, Ari, Fubar, Zero. Thank you guys so much. Everybody contributed with Super Chat. You guys are extra generous tonight. I completely appreciate that. You have no idea. And everybody who contributed just with good conversation and good ideas and your good company tonight, thank you so much. You have no idea how grateful we are for that. So that's it. I'm going to pull a plug on this thing, and let's call it a night. Good night, everybody. Thank you.